welcome back everyone to A Gentleman's Life. I'm just going to upload a quick video today in response to one of Stuart Lomas's videos recently. Before I get to that, hope you're all doing well. Today is an Omega Day, so I'm enjoying that. I'm off from work on this Friday. I wish it was a beautiful Friday, but it's kind of gray and dreary. So not the day I would like to have to be off of work, but that's how it goes. So the topic of Stuart Lomas's video was boutique and department store watches. And I have a few different perspectives, and I think that covers such a wide variety of watches that it's hard to give a complete or singular answer. You have essentially department store or fashion watches. Then you have boutique watches, which I also would categorize micro brands kind of into that. They're a type of boutique watch, I would say, almost. But that you can debate that fact. Some micro brands start as just simply micro brands, and I think become boutique brands. And then you start getting the question of what separates the two. But that's maybe a whole different discussion. But really, I think you have to separate boutique and department store brands. Department store brands are big-name department stores or fashion companies creating watches for people to wear who don't particularly care about what us watch nerds care about, if you will. Or for women. Women tend to trend towards department store and fashion watches, generally speaking, more often. Because I think for them it's more just another accessory to add. Versus for us and the engineering and detail and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, back to the topic at hand. I'm going to specifically focus more on boutique because I'm not really into department store watches at all. It's not my thing. However, boutique watch brands I can enjoy depending on the brand, and I'll kind of explain that, Some boutique brands I feel just overcharge you for what you're getting. Some recycle designs, but some are doing really interesting things. Granted, you pay for it, but very interesting things. Taking a basic movement like a 2824, but then doing really interesting modifications and complications and using that to create interesting designs. And the other is brands that kind of started as micro brands or small like online boutique brands, and have moved into the mid-tier or upper mid-tier level of watch company. Examples there you could consider Steinhardt, or maybe the best example I can come up with from personal experience is Christopher Ward. So I'll use that in my example. But first, what I'm going to do is we're going to switch around the view, and I'm going to show you what I consider a high-priced boutique watch brand that I am very interested in, actually. And it's all based off of doing their own designs and modifying 2824s. So we'll start with that. Alright, so here's the company I'm talking about, everyone. Osha und Junior. So they're a boutique brand, and I think they have some really interesting watches. So this is a moon phase design that they've done. And you can get it in different colors, different materials. But all their designs are very simple designs. So you can see just how marks and then the moon phase. The ones I'm particularly interested in are the annual calendar you see here. So you have the time, and then you have this outer section of dots, which is your date. So you have 1 and 31 at the top there. Down here you have the 15 and etc. And here you have day of the week, and up here you have month, what month it is. So just a really interesting and different take on an annual calendar watch. So I think that's a great example. This is just a simple date complication. Here's their 2 time zone complication, which I think is also very interesting, where you have your basic timer on the outside, but on the inside you have this set of what you'd almost call like digital date windows set in a separate time zone. So you can see the time zone that this is in would say that this right here, is 7 o'clock. In the second time zone, that's 1 o'clock. Just a really interesting, different way to do it, and if I'm not mistaken, that is based off of a 2824. Yep, that's based on the ETA 2824-2, and then their watchmaker has replaced and modified the movement to create that. Now if we go back, let's check the annual calendar and see if that's based off of 2824 as well. Yep, also based off the 2824 as well, and then they've modified that to be an annual calendar watch. So here you have, a online boutique brand that takes a basic movement that doesn't cost that much, but then does these interesting designs based off of different complications. Really interesting. Granted, you pay for it. You're paying $5,000 to $8,000 for a watch, but I think it's a very interesting design. And to me, that's a boutique brand that may be worth the time because they're doing interesting, different things, which is something that you can really appreciate. Alright, so another brand, or another example I think of a boutique brand that becomes worth the time is when you have a online boutique brand, or just a boutique brand, or some type of micro brand, but they slowly build their company into something bigger and become a mid-tier brand. But then they've built up their company and built up enough capital and customer base to start trying different things and expanding what they're doing and move into the realm that currently only the established companies can really compete in. And to me, a great example of this is Christopher Ward. You look in the beginning, 10 years ago, Christopher Ward was making basic pilot dive watches, dress watches, based on, the Sellita SW200, the ETA 2824, those types of movements. Rewind to just a couple of years ago, after being in business for 10 years, they've been able to build enough customer base and capital to start doing different things, taking movements and modifying them with complications, developing their own movement, and I think you want companies like that in the watch industry, but without starting as a boutique brand, utilizing basic movements, they would never have made it to the point where they could do that. And I think that's important. So I'll show you the 3 examples of different complications Christopher Ward has done with their movements in the past couple of years that I think kind of show how they're trying to branch out and do something different than the basic, models. So here's the first, and this is Christopher Ward's jumping hour. So this is just a basic 28-24 movement, but they've modified it to have just the minute hand, and then you have a jumping hour at the 12 o'clock that shows which hour you're on. So just an interesting and different type of complication that has been done to modify, a basic movement. And that was the first time they tried to do a complication. The second, which is actually my favorite, is a single pusher or mono pusher chronograph. So here, Christopher Ward took a Unitas 6497 and they modified it to create a single pusher or mono pusher chronograph. So you have the bicompact chronograph that all works through a single button. And that to me is actually an excellent job and complication, really interesting. And the third and the last one they did was this a world timer essentially, and it's also based off the 2893, so the ETA GMT movement, but it's been modified so when you turn the chrono one direction, it will set. You can set your time, a 24-hour clock. Then you have another hand for a separate 24-hour time zone, and then if you pull out the chrono to one spot, it will let you turn it in one direction to set what city on the map you're in for a time zone, and then the opposite direction will set the airport symbol for that city at the top of the 12 o'clock position, or 2400 position. So it's kind of a pseudo world timer. It's not a true world timer, but just a really interesting modification to the 2893 movement. So those are 3 examples of Christopher Ward kind of branching out from the basic, standard models, going on to something else. So I guess to just kind of close, I'm not into fashion brands, which is essentially to me what department store brands are. But micro brands and boutique brands I like because it allows companies to start creating, designing, and if they can get to the point where they can do these kind of things, they can really do some interesting things with watches, and that's something I appreciate. I'd be really interested in that, Osha's un Junior annual calendar, and I've already kind of given in and spent my bonus for this year on that I'm getting in a couple months. I'm spending it. I already ordered, and it's gonna get paid for that Christopher Ward single pusher chronograph, because I've always wanted to, try out that type of thing. I've always been really intrigued by both bicompax chronographs and by mono pushers. So getting those both together really intrigues me. So I decided to, get that and try that out, and I'm just waiting for that to get mailed out and end up at my doorstep. So I think boutique brands have a place in the watch industry, but for me, it's a brand by brand, essentially, is what happens. And you do have to pay for it often, because they're trying to make difference and modifications on a budget or without having a huge customer base. But at the same time, you get a limited watch that most people won't have. This Christopher Ward, single pusher is, you're getting one of 250 watches. It was actually hand assembled by the top two guys at their top two watchmakers, and no one else there touches it. Whereas normally, those two guys design, plan, or run all the other people who put the watches together. But in this case, in that watch, those two put it together themselves. And with the boutique brands, you're getting this really different type of watch. It's going to be in limited production because they can't make lots of them, and something different and interesting. So I think there's a place for them, but it really depends brand to brand, and if they're trying to push the envelope and do something different. So I've really started rambling a little bit, I think. Hope, Stuart, you enjoyed my response. Everyone else, I hope you found this interesting, and I'd be interested to hear what the rest of you think as well, actually. And what do you think of those boutique brands and or micro brands, and what is their place in the watch industry? So coming up soon, I'm going to have another couple watch reviews. I'm going to hit on a few other topics here and there, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching. Until next time.